Welcome to the fifth episode of Developer Diaries. This episode is all about the socially awkward developer. I hope you don't mind that I named it that, but I think
That's
it's a
okay.
really important thing to talk about, especially because it's such a common problem that so many people face, especially in tech. I'm sure in other industries as well, but I can only speak to people in tech that I know of. This is really just about the journey of someone who found a way to accept it and grow with it, and is now a prominent speaker in the developer community and doing a lot of things that might sound like you've sort of just like overcome that entire experience. And so I think it's valuable for people who relate to it, who have experienced it in the past, and for people who are currently going through that problem right now so that they can find ways to overcome it as well. So, yeah, Josh, I would like to start with just like a who is Josh statement. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. We met in Cascadia JS last year. That was the thing. I awkwardly crashed your dinner table with someone else, Kelly from SourceCraft. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm Josh. I right now live in Philly, but I grew up in upstate New York, lived in Seattle for a little bit, then New York City for a little bit. I'm a full-time open source maintainer slash developer. So instead of working for a specific company, I don't and work on a variety of open source projects online, mostly around the TypeScript ecosystem.
I sort of like to describe you as this person that started off as a builder, turned into a creator, a designer, and then is now a developer. And one of the like memories that you told me about last time in our pre-interview was how you sort of like struggled socially and you used to play with Legos as a way to sort of deal with that. So can you just tell us a little bit about your experience and how you first started realizing that this was an issue that you dealt with, and how it impacted your journey into tech?
Sure. I know that sometimes my brother listens to these. He's 5 years older than me, and sometimes random people from my childhood listen. And I think this would be very amusing slash horrifying for one of those folks to hear. When I was a kid, I played with Legos a lot because I didn't really have a lot of friends. Once in a while, I would make a friend or have a small friend group, but I, until high school, was never really a core member of anything. Uh, so I just played with Legos in the basement because that's what I wanted to do. Or I later on played with the computer. Like I played a lot of RuneScape, a lot of Halo. There's this stereotype that developers are people who hang out in their parents' basement and don't talk. And you know what? I really resent that stereotype because well, for starters, that's not helpful. That's very harmful to people. A lot of us have friends in real life. And also because that's not me. I think development necessitates working with other people. At least the vast majority of software developers, as they grow in their careers, learn the easy or the hard way that you need to be able to communicate effectively with others. You need to be able to give feedback, receive feedback, collaborate on shared features. You're not isolated in your development. So part of, for me, becoming a software developer was overcoming that kind of social awkwardness. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know what to do in a situation. I'm going to avoid it and learn to make friends and have real good bonds with teammates.
Yeah. And it's tough for everyone, right? I think that it's something that is sort of like a spectrum where everyone sort of feels it in different situations, and some people can feel it really badly and it can really affect the way that you look at yourself or think about yourself, and it can sort of be a blocker in you reaching the opportunities that are available to you, versus for some people they find it really easy to get over it. So it's really just about finding where you are on that spectrum and then the right ways to deal with those situations. What was the process of you sort of like, I like to call it a metamorphosis, but like going from being someone who dealt with this to now someone who's speaking at conferences? Like, was it college when you started deciding that, or not necessarily, might not have been a decision, but just started becoming more comfortable with yourself and becoming more social with other people?
Yeah, I think making friends in high school was nice. I was still a weird kid. A lot of random outbursts of enthusiasm over random stuff that was weird. Um, my core friend group that I have now, I started to make in college. I remember freshman year, there was this group of us who always hung out in the rec room or living room of the little dorm we were in. I'm actually married to one of those people now, so that's nice.
Nice.
Uh, great way to make friends, marriage.
Yeah.
Um, I've always enjoyed the conference speaking or meetup speaking side of software development. I think it's because I find it useful. Also, there's probably a part of me that's real triumphant. I've overcome the inability to speak in front of others. I don't really have a lot of social anxiety around specifically speaking, which I find to be weird and maybe the opposite of what some folks have, where I'm awkward in conversation by default, but totally don't mind going up on stage and screaming about something for an hour.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's something that I deal with a lot where I struggle to find topics to talk about because I'm like, oh my God, no one's gonna want to listen to what I have to say. People are gonna think I'm stupid. And that's like when I'm actually on stage becomes even worse. It becomes like the stage fright type of situation. So I assume that that's something that you felt as well, but you're saying it's not. You don't feel that at all when you're on stage. It's more about those like more intimate situations.
Correct. The way I think I've interpreted it, and at least the way I explain it to folks, is it's kind of like a game or a set of games. And like any game, there are a set of rules that you may or may not understand. And once you understand the rules, and second to that, understand how to work effectively with them, it's a lot less scary and intimidating. So
Yeah.
just talking to people about a topic is a lot simpler of a game for me, at least, than making conversation with folks. And it's something that I got acceptable at, I think, a lot sooner.
You got really good at it, and I'm really glad that you approached me at Cascadia JS because
Thanks.
I'm always going to these conferences and I'm like, I want to talk to people. Sometimes I approach them and then I just like back off really quickly. So it's really nice to have someone that just like approaches first and, says that hello, says that, hey, do you guys want to get dinner together? Like we're all here after a long day at the bus ride. And just everyone wants to eat and talk and meet new people. And you're sort of like being that person that makes the first move, which is really helpful.
Thanks.
What has your process in or your experience in maintaining long-term friendships been like? Do you think that's been impacted by this?
Yeah, I'm terrible at maintaining long-term friendships. And I hope that all of my long-term friends are listening to this and understanding that my not texting you for 2 to 4 months is not you, it's me. I I just there's this weird little psychological block in my mind where it takes energy for me to do anything that's social electronically. I don't like it. If I'm living with or near someone, I'm so much better at hanging out with them. Although I will say I think I had this problem when I lived near people. I just didn't want to do stuff. So maybe now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe is the problem is I don't like doing things. I want to just do whatever is convenient in front of me.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I have a few long-term friendships that I'm somewhat okay at staying in touch with them on, but it's hard. I wish it was easier.
Yeah. And when we were talking in our pre-interview, you mentioned that you worked at a company called Sway, and that was probably the first time that first company from which you've maintained long-term friendships. And that was, I think, the fourth job experience that you had, something like that.
Sorry, I should know. It was the Sway team inside Microsoft Office, inside
Oh,
Microsoft.
okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Um, and I thought that was really important because especially these days, I think people make it a point to sort of try to be friends with coworkers and try to force relationships because it's like important to have a lot of friends, and there's a lot of pressure to do that. Whereas it's okay to just be coworkers with coworkers, right? Like you don't have to build friendships unless there's something that sort of connects you and makes you feel that there's a reason for you to want to get close to someone. Um, did you feel like there was a reason why you connected with those teammates more than the people that you had worked with in the past?
Yeah. There there are definitely people who I keep in touch with from every stage of my life, except I think elementary school and earlier. That I don't know that there's anyone. But
That was a while
I
back. It's okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
a different man back in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there. I actually just started talking on LinkedIn with someone from my Microsoft team prior to that. But Sway was this awesome combination of a lot of us had similar vibes. Uh, I don't want to say similar age because there are people I'm still in touch with who are not around my age, but similar vibes. We all cared about the product and a lot of the same social issues or area social issues, and we got along really well. So that was nice.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people either strongly want or strongly don't want to make friendships with their coworkers, or at least profess that as a good methodology to go for. And I don't like either end of that spectrum. I think it's a good idea and useful to be on good terms, even friendly with coworkers. But if you're not looking for friends, or if these aren't the people you want to be friends with, it's fine to leave it there. Like, there's no need to say, I'm never going to make friends with coworkers. That's bad work-life balance or integration. Like, no, you can make friends at work. That's fine.
Yeah. And yeah, making friends with coworkers is also sort of helps you work with them better sometimes as well. It helps you feel closer, and it creates an environment where you can share things that you might not necessarily feel comfortable sharing with everyone else on the team. Just like solve problems together, which is nice. But yeah, there's no pressure to do something like that. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of, like, you mentioned that you had a lot of there was like compatibility between your teammates at Sway that sort of made it easier to maintain that relationship. What do you mean by that?
I don't know. I'm very socially nervous. Even though I may not be anxious in situations, I always overanalyze and worry and wonder. So
Yeah.
I still don't know, and don't think I will ever know the nature of my relationship with these people. My
Yeah.
assumption is everyone else is friends, and I'm just an outskirt. But I don't know.
I feel like that's you overthinking now.
We will. You can
We'll
say
never
that. I
know.
appreciate
Yeah.
the sentiment. Yeah, we'll never know. Um, I don't know. It was just they're really lovely people. I mean,
Yeah.
we do. This is one of the few group chats I'm active in. One of the old Sway groups. Or I'm going to message this to them after. They're going to love this. I don't know. It's just nice people. We got along well. We hung out in and out of work. It was fun.
Yeah. Awesome. And then for the people out there that are struggling with similar issues where they feel like they're awkward or they have a lot of anxiety in social situations, do you have any advice or anything that you've learned in the process that you want to share with them?
Yeah, I have a few things that come to mind, and I'm going to try to do one of them in order, or each of them in
Yeah.
order, and pause. But yell at me if I just start rambling, please.
Okay.
For starters, um, it's okay. It'll take time to get better. Don't assume that just because you're not great at something now that you'll never be. That's what I assumed. I was wrong. So, if you're whatever, 21, 43, whatever your age is, and you feel like you're still awkward and you don't know how to talk to people, so it's all right. Just chill there, observe, try to learn as much as you can, even read books, and hopefully it'll get better over time. Thoughts?
Yeah. I fully agree. I think sometimes advice like that, though, can be hard to actually implement, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when you're in a specific situation. And I struggle with that as well because I find myself giving advice that I don't know if I would take, right? When
Yeah.
in those situations, I'm like, that sounds really great, but it's hard to implement. Um, and maybe it is one of those things that everyone sort of just has to figure it out on their own. And there is no maybe actionable thing that you can do to solve that situation. It's about finding comfort in yourself, um, and just reminding yourself that a lot of the things that you're anxious about are just kind of in your head, and everyone around you is also feeling that same way.
Yes. That being
Yeah.
said, I do have actionable suggestions. I just list this
Okay.
as
Yes.
the baseline
Let's
because you're
go.
right. A
Yeah.
lot of it is internal to you.
Yeah.
The first thing that I want to recommend is a book. This is a
Mhm.
slightly controversial book. There are parts of it some people disagree with. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale
Mhm.
Carnegie. Specifically, the updated for the 21st century version, as we do not need a discussion of marriage roles, which was in the original, written a very long time ago, which explains that.
Nice.
Have you read this? Have
I
we talked
have
about this yet?
not, but I want to read the original version now. Talk about it, please. Tell me more.
Okay. So, yes, it is largely often called the first self-help book, even though I think it describes itself in a different phrase. I always forget. But it's about how to win friends and influence people. The title is off-putting. The fact that it's written 100 years ago from, let's be honest, a white dude like that is itself off-putting to some people for good reasons. But the actual content of the book in isolation is excellent. It's helped me. It's helped a lot of people, both with and without things like social anxiety, Asperger's, and so on. It gives a lot of really good, actionable, and generally applicable tips for conversing and for making friendships and connections. Things like people love to hear their own name. If you're ever unsure of what to talk about, ask a question. Find commonalities with people. The reason why you and I are now talking is in part because you wanted dinner, I wanted dinner. There was a
Yeah.
spot at your table that we had like two things in common there, on top of both being tech, potentially even DevRel-y area people.
Yeah.
So yeah, highly recommend the book, with the caveat that you should read it and think critically and deeply on the points it makes and whether they apply to you. I say this because there's a lot of advice in the book about smiling, because that's great advice unless you're someone who has been constantly told to smile their entire life because of your gender, and you probably don't want to be told that anymore. Things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. 100%. Yeah, take it with a grain of salt. I think any type of advice like that is supposed to be like, none of these things are blanket statements, right? Like they're more about apply it to the specific situation. Be smart about these things. But yeah, I think that's a great actionable way of just like, let's start by reading a book. Let's see what other people's experiences are like. Um, you mentioned saying people's name a lot, so I'm just going to say Josh every single time I say something. So Josh,
Thanks,
is
Trey.
there
I
anything
appreciate
else? Yeah. Hey Josh, is there anything else you want to share, Josh?
it. Yeah. Yeah, don't be creepy. That's another good piece of advice. I don't remember whether the book says that, but
Yeah.
I think there was an episode of It's Always Sunny about not saying people's names constantly. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, find people who match the things you want to find in people. Like, it's very tempting to say that I want to be friends with X group of people, therefore I will work my hardest towards them. Let's say it's a coworker or your neighbors or whatnot, but not everyone is going to be a match, and it's very okay to have a friendship or a connection not work out. You say hi, they never respond back. You try to start conversation, it never goes anywhere. Okay. Especially in folks with ADHD, I recently learned of rejection sensitivity, where your
Mhm.
mind just really ups that I hate this reaction to being rejected. And that can make this feel worse. So
Yeah.
that's also quite literally in your mind and body, but something that you should note is it's okay. This will happen.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I really struggled with rejection as well, especially when you're already maybe like slightly close to someone or getting close to someone, and then something happens in their life or they say something or do something that sort of like pushes you away.
Yeah.
Um, or like long-term relationships where you're friends with someone for a long time and then all of a sudden you're like, they're not prioritizing me, they don't care about me anymore, and dealing with those situations can be hard. And I don't know where I saw this or read this or heard about this, but it was about how like people have a lot of shit going on. Everyone has a lot of shit going on in their lives. And just because they're giving you that distance or they're putting you further away, or maybe they're not responding as closely as they used to, it's not a reflection on who you are or what they think about you, but more about just that they don't have the mental capacity for it right now, right? That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that that friendship is destroyed forever, right? If you're trying to be friends with someone you think they're really cool and they're like just not taking you in, maybe it's just not the right time.
Yeah.
Um, and it does not mean you're not cool or that you're not an awesome person. It just means that they got a lot going on and it's okay
Yeah.
to just give it some space.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
And is there anything else that you feel like is important to share around this topic?
Yes. One more thing. This is the least
Yeah.
important of them all. I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
Orson Welles is widely regarded as one of the funny figures in American history. He was a cinematographer, very, very good. Used to trash talk everyone and everything around him. He hated, or at least once said he hated, Woody. Well, what was his name? Woody Allen. There we go. Woody Allen, and the general persona of people like Woody Allen, because Woody Allen would say he's nervous, he's scared, he has anxiety, whatever it is. And Orson did not like that because, and I'm directly reading a quote, like all people with timid personalities, his arrogance is unlimited. Anyone who speaks quietly and shrivels up in company is unbelievably arrogant. That's a false statement. Please don't hear that directly. But the idea is, well, if you're hyper focusing on how everyone else focuses on you, or at least interprets you, that is a form of you looking at yourself. And it's not healthy to be constantly doing that. You can't always exist trying to hyper analyze, really understand everyone's relationship to you. They're not existing in terms of you, they're existing in terms of them. So if you're constantly going around worried about how people are and analyzing you and interpreting you, you're probably overthinking it and thinking about yourself too much, which, despite what Orson Welles says, is totally natural and fine and just something to work on.
Yeah. It's hard. It is totally natural and fine, and I think that a lot of people struggle with it, but it's hard to get over that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned it. I think it like, even just talking about it and having these conversations and normalizing it can help. Um, thank you so much. That is the end of the first episode of the Developer Diaries, or not the first
Woo.
episode. That's the 5th episode of Developer Diaries. Thank you so much for joining.